and perhaps even Casey Field.
From what I remember from some of the talks that we had with the folks in Richmond was
with the lawyers.
I mean, with Senator Deeds and Delegate Austin, and it even came up, as I recall, in the conversations with the Department of Education with Dr. James Lane, and maybe not so much with Secretary Carney, but it was discussed. State assistance obviously was discussed pretty much everywhere we went there. We can ask for capital funds, but what the state, from a consolidation model standpoint, what they were interested in doing was figuring out a good framework moving forward for other divisions or other localities in our situation to provide some assistance, but that capital funding wasn't necessarily going to be at the top of their list. Obviously, because there's a lot of localities who the math may make sense from a population standpoint, but maybe their facilities aren't currently, as they set, are not adequate to house a consolidated division. So in a lot of localities, Mr. Tucker, it would take, you're talking 30, 40, $60 million that the state would have to kick in to facilitate.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things that they have done in the past. And whenever they were consolidated, they have kicked in capital outlay funds. Now, I realize that the consolidation with Bedford screwed everything up. But if we were to ask for $3 or $4 million, that's a drop in the bucket for the state.
Well, I think that potential exists for sure, and I think it exists, and it's. I agree with you from a overall standpoint. There would be nothing that would prevent us from asking for those funds. My suggestion would be that we sort of bifurcate our ask. I would prefer that we know what that number is. We already know what the number is, to equalize salaries, benefits, and then fund the early retirement incentive package, and then maybe have an additional request over and above that to help take care of some capital outlay.
But John, let me interject this. Maybe since you're suggesting the bifurcation and there's nothing holding us back from asking for a capital outlay assistance, there are several folks in the General Assembly who, various delegates that have actually formed some committees looking at school capital outlay needs, looking at a commission on school needs. One of them, I believe, is Jennifer McClellan is heading up one of those committees. Would it not be prudent for members of the Finance Committee to then potentially reach out to members of the General Assembly that are looking into those kinds of things, to making recommendations to VDOE on capital needs and things like that, just to figure out where the state is with that stuff?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And the state also promotes merger or consolidation, and therefore if they're going to promote that, then they ought to be able to at least do some funding for it in capital outlay, as well as the 1.5 million that we're asking for. I mean, it's not much if we ask for another 1.5 or even 2.5, because it's a drop in the bucket for the state.
Okay, why don't we set up a meeting for the Finance Committee, and let's try to put some numbers together.
Yes, I think that's good.
And well, since we passed this thing, let's have some numbers that we can estimate and ask for it. And when we go down, I mean, but we need to put some numbers together. So I think we ought to meet.
5-year plan of what you anticipate cost to be and what you know you can't meet.
That's true. That's a good idea. Thank you, Chris.
So another thing is this capital outlay that you're talking about. It sounds like the facilities subcommittee needs to have a meeting too and go through what our facilities concerns are.
We have to look at the assessment that was done for us. and then pick out what we think are the most crucial things that we would need for capital outlay. It doesn't mean that we're going to get the whole 9 yards, but we get what we can so that we have at least a little better base to begin with when we do merge.
Right. No, I'm all for that, and I think to Mr. Griffith's suggestion, I mean, we can go ahead and circulate an email to that subcommittee and go ahead and get some availability for scheduling and things, and we can get a meeting going within the next week or two. And going off of the facilities assessments, it's really just going to be a matter of prioritizing a lot of what was in the facilities assessments and working out what we think would be, obviously I think you're probably well into multi-year planning for something like that. So it would just be a matter of having a few meetings to try to suss that out. But I think it's an entirely prudent step to go.
I also think
the committee could, if we could set a meeting up with Delegate Austin and Senator Creed Deeds, and before we go and ask and get their blessings and make sure they'll back it. And we may have to take stuff out.
Well, I think that's why it might be important to reach out to other committees in the General Assembly that have been formed, centered on some of the education stuff, just to figure out what the conversation is with some of the other elected officials. Austin and Deeds, they have certain focus areas that they focus on, and I do know for a fact that there's been certain committees created to look at VDOE needs and requirements, investments into school districts for capital outlay. That was something that I saw when I went for VML Day, for instance. So there's nothing wrong with at least trying to look, through VACO or VML, just to figure out there are these committees and what are the current discourse, to then say, hey, this is what we're hearing. Is this something that you all would be willing to support, given the current discussions that are occurring? Because it might not be this year due to COVID, might not be next year, but maybe in year 3 there might be the opportunity. We don't know.
That's correct, and that's the reason I felt like we needed to get our local representation on board with it. Then we can reach out to FACO and other members of different committees, just keep them in the loop.
Well,
I agree with you.
I think one of the things that probably needs to happen is all the different subcommittees need to meet and figure out what their needs are. Now that we've gotten this far, the athletic subcommittee might say, well, this is what we would need. This is what it would take for us. The curriculum subcommittee might have some wants and needs, and then possibly we could all meet back up and kind of discuss the needs of each committee and what it would cost and what would be ideal, and then we can kind of present a whole plan to Creed Deeds and Terry Austin about.
Well, I think you're right.
That makes sense. Systems like A, B, and C. What's the most critical? There are going to be some items on there that it's a wish list, and we don't want to put those on there because that could knock us out of getting anything. So pick the priorities first, then add B to it, and C to it, then we can let them go over it. We'll pull out what they don't think they can support and go with it from there. But you're right, we need to get it from all subcommittees. And there's a few things that we need to discuss that came during the process.
And that's something we actually have a little bit of time on, because that doesn't have anything to do with our request from the Board of Education. So that's a General Assembly thing. So we have a little bit of time that we can meet as subcommittees and hash out we can have a wish list and we can have a need list, and then we can kind of go from there.
Well, right. That's what I said. The priority is what we need to take a look at first as far as capital outlay is concerned. But we also have to realize that it may be a few years down, it may be not this biennium or the next biennium, but if we could, because it's going to take some time to recover from COVID. I mean, the revenue is down billions of dollars in the state. And so therefore we have to, do what we can, but make our requests reasonable. And if we have a priority list, and that includes anything from all of the subcommittees, then I think that we may have a chance, because they will realize that we are being honest and straightforward, and we're not looking at a wish list for, 10 or $15 million.
Right.
And you brought up another good point. Maybe some of those items can be linked to COVID.
That's right.
And if they can, we need to identify those.
Yeah. Good idea.
All right. Well, it sounds like we got some good ideas going here. Do you all want to try to get these subcommittees to meet up either this coming week or the following week, and then maybe we'll have another week meeting of this committee in like 2 weeks, like on October 8th? That's a Thursday.
Could you not make it on the second or fourth Thursday in the evening? I can go in the afternoons, but I have something. I've tried to get this for you before. I mean,
okay.
I have a club meeting that
we could do it the next Thursday, if that would give the subcommittees really time to meet.
Yeah, first and third would be fine, or first, third, and fifth if there is a fifth week.
So October 15th, is that too far out?
What?
I don't think that's too much.
Is that the
Is
second?
there any way we can have these meetings in the evening? So
If that would work best for you, Ms. Hunter, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's good. Is that the second Thursday?
Because I'm at work until about 5:30.
That's the third Thursday.
Third Thursday is good.
Yes, sir.
Let me get in here for a minute. I've been quietly waiting.
Go, Tom.
What's the timeline to be before the Board of Education? Because I know that Senator Deeds and Delegate Austin would like to have had something in their hand by November.
30.
Yes. Yeah, and I talked to Stephen Cobb this afternoon, and he said the plan was to get it to him right at the beginning of November.
So we've got till the beginning of November, but you're putting meetings out in the middle of October. And that's not even much time to work on those.
I don't think there's a whole lot that this whole committee needs to work on between now and then.
The subcommittees are going to need to work on some stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't have them meet until the middle of October, how do you know?
Subcommittees can start meeting immediately.
Okay.
If the subcommittees can, I was thinking if the subcommittees can meet over this week or the following week, and then that kind of gives people a little bit of time to come back to this committee. But I think that a lot of the work we're talking about right now is subcommittee work, and we will bring it back and present it to this whole committee. But most of the stuff that they need to get to the state has already been completed.
Right.
It just needs to be put in the correct order and.
So I've had some concerns for a long time about the way we've done things. I'm more of a let's go on and get it done kind of person. And it seems like we drag out too much sometimes. It took us 2 weeks to get this meeting scheduled from the time we voted at County High School. I thought we should have had a lot sooner. Fine what we've done, but at the same token, our transparency needs to be improved. There are questions that people have that we don't have the answers to. That thing with this stupid phone poll, I keep being told I'm a liar because we hadn't done that. And we can't give them a good answer on why that hadn't been done.
The lawyers.
So, there's a lot of stuff like that, Jacob, but we need to get a daggone grip on it and start telling people what's going on.